What if I told you that modern psychology is still trying to discover what God already established in covenant from the very beginning? According to Genesis 5:2, male and female created he them, blessed them, and called their name Adam. What? Their name. Not just his, not hers, their name. This means that in heaven's architecture, marriage was never designed as two isolated people negotiating their survival. It was designed as oneness, one covering, one flesh, one emotional ecosystem, one spiritual atmosphere. That means the enemy rarely starts by destroying marriage through one giant event. Usually, what breaks covenant are small, repeated psychological fractures that slowly divide what God still calls one. And that is why today I want to walk you through 5 destructive relationship patterns, whether in you or in your spouse, that may be silently eroding oneness. And I want to show you how scripture already revealed the cure for it. And before we get into pattern 1, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm an author of 3 spiritual warfare books with 2 more coming this year and later next year. My heart burns for marriage restoration, everything about covenant, emotional safety, and helping marriages understand both the psychological and spiritual layers of what they are walking through. This is not surface relationship advice. This is where we bridge science, scripture, psychology, and covenant wisdom. So if you want biblical marriage revelation that goes much deeper than mainstream YouTube relational advice, subscribe, hit the like button right now, because this channel is built for people who know marriage is not just emotional, it is also spiritual architecture. Now, let's begin. Pattern 1, identity criticism. The first destructive pattern is identity criticism. Dr. John Gottman's research showed that criticism is one of the most corrosive forces in long-term relationships. Why? Because it moves the issue away from behavior and places it on identity of the other person. So instead of saying, this conversation hurts me, it becomes, you never care, you always fail, this is just who you are. Now the conflict is no longer about repair, it becomes character assassination. Let me give you a real marriage example. A husband forgets an important conversation or an important date. The real wound may be, I felt unseen, but instead of that, the other spouse says, you are emotionally absent, just like always. Now, the nervous system doesn't hear invitation, it hears danger. According to Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath. Notice scripture doesn't only address morality here, it addresses relational nervous system regulation. A soft answer lowers threat. A harsh identity statement raises defense. So the healing practice is this: address the wound without attacking the worth. Say, when this happened, I felt disconnected. Instead of saying, you never show up. That single shift can rebuild emotional safety. Pause and ask yourself today, have I been correcting behavior in my spouse or attacking their identity? That would give you the revelation there. That brings me to pattern 2, hiding and withdrawal. The second destructive pattern is withdrawal, hiding, and emotional shutdown. This started in scripture immediately after the rupture. According to Genesis 3:8-10, Adam hid. The first sign of broken covenant dynamics was not screaming, it was hiding, silence, distance, avoidance. This is where psychology becomes very powerful. John Bowlby's attachment theory explains that emotional withdrawal activates abandonment fear in the other spouse. So when one partner goes silent, the other often begins overtexting, over-explaining, assuming rejection, emotional spiraling. And now both spouses are trapped. One hides from overwhelm, the other pursues from fear. Let me make this practical. A wife senses her husband is distant for 3 days. Instead of asking from calmness, fear interprets that something is wrong, he's leaving, he's done with me emotionally. Now protest behavior starts. Long paragraphs, emotional pressure, repeated check-ins. This usually pushes the withdrawing spouse even further away. According to James 1:19, let every person be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. The principle is wise, and the principle says that pause, emotionally feel safe, and response before escalation. Silence should be processed, not worshipped. Not every quiet moment means abandonment. Sometimes it means overwhelm. Sometimes it means shame and internal processing. We are all human beings who needs our emotions to be processed. The healing question here is, how do we create safe re-entry after distance? That brings me to pattern 3, conditioned pain. The third destructive pattern is negative conditioning around connection. This is where Pavlov becomes incredibly relevant to marriage. Repeated emotional experience create conditioned body responses. For example, if every nighttime talk becomes a conflict, if every finance conversation becomes accusation, if every intimacy conversation becomes disappointment, where does that lead your relationship to? Eventually, the body responds before the mind. Now your spouse feels stressed before the conversation even begins. The room itself becomes a trigger. The time of that day when the conversation happens becomes the trigger. Even your own tone can become a trigger. According to Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Words become memory. Memory becomes association. Association becomes dread. Here is the healing. You must create new safe emotional pairings. That means better timing, calm tone, lower voice, shorter conversation that leads the other spouse into safety. Warmth before hard topics. Appreciation before correction. Restoration is often reconditioning your nervous system where both of you feel that the connection is safe again, and that takes repetition. And that brings me to pattern 4, emotional starvation. The fourth destructive pattern is relational deprivation. Frederick Herzberg talked about hygiene factors, and that was very interesting for me to find out. It's required to keep a system healthy. In marriage, those hygiene factors are appreciation, affection, consistency, reliability, and emotional presence, your respect, tenderness. But over months, relationship becomes the one with no appreciation, no compliments, no laughter, no eye contact. Without them, the covenant may still exist legally, but emotionally the atmosphere begins to suffocate. A real example of that could be, nothing bad happened here, no big betrayal, no huge fight, and now the marriage feels dry. According to Ephesians 5:33, let the husband love and the wife reverence. Love and honor are not random virtues. They are the oxygen system of your covenant, of your marriage. The daily deposits matter more than occasional speeches. A 5-second hug, a thank you, a calm smile, a hand on the shoulder to reassure that you are safe. These things psychologically restore security in your marriage. Pattern number 5. False stories of the mind. The fifth destructive is mental storytelling and cognitive distortion. This silently destroys more marriages than most people realize. CVT shows how people distort the reality through mind reading, catastrophizing, black and white thinking, sometimes even going for fortune telling, rejection assumptions. So a delayed reply becomes an assumption that is destructive, that is, they don't care. A short text becomes they are cold. A need for space becomes they are done with the marriage. And now behavior begins responding to a story and not the reality. This is where sabotage begins. According to 2 Corinthians 10:4-5, it says that bring every thought into captivity. Not every thought deserves agreement. Not every fear is truth. Not every emotional conclusion is revelation. A marriage can collapse under assumption that was never real to begin with. The healing practice could be slow the story down. Ask yourself, what are the facts? What is the fear that is driving the situation right now? What is the assumption? And this single practice changes everything. This is why I say Psychology can name the pattern, but scripture heals the root. According to Ezekiel 36:26, a new heart also will I give you. God heals the reflex, the fear loop, the hiding, the argument in your mind, the tongue, the emotional starvation in your relationship. God heals every false stories, and according to Genesis 5:2, heaven still sees covenant through their name. So the question today is not what is the problem. The real question that you should be asking is what pattern is attacking our oneness? Because once the pattern is exposed, healing can begin. If this message spoke to you, subscribe and stay here, because this is where we bridge psychology, scripture, and covenant restoration. And if your marriage is in active warfare right now, that's why I built Covenant Warrior System to see breakthrough, war effectively for your marriage and for your family. Link is in my bio and also under this description. Let's do this together.